Hello to all. So since today is our first class, I'd like to give a small subject introduction for our subject, that is clinical pharmacokinetics and therapeutic drug monitoring. So as you can see over here, our subject have got two main topics. The first one is clinical pharmacokinetics and second one is the therapeutic drug monitoring. So obviously both are interrelated to one another, but we'll try to know about these topics one by one. So we'll start with the clinical pharmacokinetics. Now, first of all, what is pharmacokinetic? This thing you have studied long back in your pharmacology class. It is a study of the time course of drug absorption, distribution, metabolism and excretion. This thing you know very well. We used to say that okay, pharmacokinetics means what the body does to the drug. Like eventually when you are engulfing a drug, what is happening to it? Yes, in the GI tract it will undergo disintegration and dissolution and it will dissolve in the body fluid in your GI tract. Next, once it has dissolved in the GI tract fluid, it will move from the GI tract, that is from the gut, into your systemic circulation, and that is known as absorption. So after absorption, the drug will be in the blood circulation, or you can say in the vascular compartment. Next, from the vascular compartment, this drug will get distributed to various parts or various organs of our body, and that is known as distribution. Eventually after distribution, it is followed by metabolism and then elimination of the drug. This is pharmacokinetics. We know this thing very well. But what is clinical pharmacokinetic? So a clinical pharmacokinetic is the application of the pharmacokinetic principle. We know what is pharmacokinetics, but now we are utilizing this knowledge. Why we are utilizing this knowledge? For the safe and effective therapeutic management of drugs in an individual patient. Okay. Now, in a clinical trial or during a drug development process, large numbers of patients are enrolled in a clinical trials in order to determine efficacy and optimum dosing regimens for a drug. Okay. So these recommended dosage regimens produce the desired pharmacological response in majority of the patient population. But, however, intra and inter-individual variations will frequently result in either subtherapeutic response or toxic response, which may then require adjustment of dosing regimen. Okay, and why this happens? This is due to individual patient needs, their disease condition and many more things. So dosage regimen may be modified for individual patients. So this is where our clinical pharmacokinetic role will take place. So clinical pharmacokinetics is application of pharmacokinetic methods to design dosage regimen for safe and effective management of illness in individual patient. Okay, so here what is the application of clinical pharmacokinetics is. Next, we'll check out few of the scope of clinical pharmacokinetics. Reading a slide is a bit boring, but okay, we are getting knowledge. The main scope of clinical pharmacokinetics is to design dosage regimen for infants and children, to design dosage regimen for elderly, to design dosage regimen for pregnant ladies, to design dosage regimen for patients having disease state like kidney or liver diseases, to design dosage regimen for obese patient. Okay, so here different patients will encounter with different problem. So according to the different population, we are making the different dosage regimen by making the use of clinical pharmacokinetics. Apart from these different population, other area where there is a big scope of clinical pharmacokinetic is the clinical pharmacokinetics is also applicable to therapeutic drug monitoring for very potent drugs such as those with very narrow therapeutic range in order to optimize efficacy and to prevent any adverse toxicity. Okay, so these all are the scope of clinical pharmacokinetics. Next, whenever a drug is mixed with its excipient, it leads to formation of a dosage form. Okay, so this is known as formulation. We have made a dosage form. Next, what we need to do with this dosage form? Yes, obviously we will consume it. Suppose this dosage form we have taken via oral administration. Now this drug has moved into our GI tract. So what will happen? In the GI tract, the drug will be released. Suppose it is a solid dosage form, means first it will undergo disintegration and then dissolution, and depending upon its hydrophilicity, it will get dissolved. Okay, that is known as dissolution. And once dissolution has been occurred, it will finally lead to absorption. Absorption means the drug will move into the systemic circulation. So this is absorption. But there are chances that the drug in the gut only, it may undergo decomposition or metabolize or bond or excreted out. So depends upon the nature of the drug. Suppose if the drug is very much alkaline in nature, and whenever you consume, first it will interact with the stomach, with the acidic pH, and it may undergo decomposition over there. Or in case if the drug is acidic in nature, and when your GIT motility is very fast enough, that that acidic drug which require an acidic environment, instead very rapidly it has moved to intestine, and in the intestine it has it have got very alkaline environment, and because of that reason the drug may be decomposed. Or in case there is a problem in the gut only, large amount of bacteria are being present, and they will engulf and they will digest the drug, anything can happen. So anyways, we will bifurcate this thing, and we will assume that the drug has reached to our systemic circulation. There is one more way by which the drug can reach to the systemic circulation, like suppose the drug is given via intravenous route, via parenteral route. So here absorption will not be a question over here. Whenever the drug is given via intravenous route, directly the drug will appear in the systemic circulation. Okay, now via oral route or via intravenous route, via any route, now the drug is present in the systemic circulation. What will happen next? Yes, next the drug will move to the extravascular tissues, or you can say the distribution of drug occurs. The drug from the systemic circulation, now it will move to various organs of the body. It may also move to the systemic circulation as well. Now suppose the target organ of our drug is supposed to be our brain. We want a drug to move to the brain, but not the 100% of the drug that has undergone absorption will move to the brain. Few percentage of drug will move to the liver also, few percentage of drug will move to the kidney also, few percentage of drug will move to the lungs also. Everywhere the drug will be distributed. Okay, we want the drug to reach to the brain, and that is our target area of action. But not 100% will be moving to the brain. Various different percentages of drug will be distributed to various other organs of our body, and in that organ we don't have any use of that particular drug. So eventually in those organ, metabolism and then eventually excretion of the drug will take place. Okay, now after getting distributed, now assume that a little amount of drug had reached to the our target, our desired organ, that is our brain. So in the brain, some pharmacological response will be produced. Pharmacological response means either it will cause activation of any receptor, like suppose that particular drug is a kind of agonist to the receptor, or it might be an antagonist for the receptor. It may cause activation of any enzyme, or it may cause inactivation of any enzyme. It may cause activation of any transporter, or it may cause inactivation of any transporter. It may interact with any other drug present in the body, or it may interact with the food particles present in our body. It may do anything. So all these things is known as the pharmacological response. Okay, and what will happen because of pharmacological response? Some kind of activity, some kind of biological activity will be produced. Like this drug supposed to cause activation of any receptor, so that receptor will get activated. Some kind of biological changes will be taking place in that particular tissue of the body. After a pharmacological response is been produced, it may obviously lead to therapeutic effect or toxic effect. So this is the time course of a drug in our body. Okay, so initially the formation of dosage form, the formulation part. This part is the this part comes under the department of pharmaceutics. Okay, next, once dosage form has been prepared, we will consume it. So right from the consumption up to the metabolism and excretion, this entire part comes under pharmacokinetics. So obviously in pharmacokinetics, we will study about the absorption, distribution, metabolism, and lastly excretion of the drug. Now, when after pharmacokinetics occurs, means little amount of the drug has been reached to our desired organ, there some kind of pharmacological response will be produced. So the area from here to here, this entire area comes under pharmacodynamics. In pharmacodynamics, basically here we'll study about the mechanism of action of the drug. And after the pharmacological response has been produced, from this line up to this line, the entire line comes under the department of therapeutics. Okay, now we started with pharmaceutics and then pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, and lastly therapeutics. Now here, where will we find clinical pharmacokinetics? So clinical pharmacokinetics is supposed to be over here. So clinical pharmacokinetics, here we will take the knowledge of pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, and apply it to therapeutics. And what is our main assumption, or we can say main aim, our main goal is to increase the therapeutic efficacy and to reduce the toxic effect produced by a drug. So that is the application of clinical pharmacokinetics. So in various areas we can make the utilization of clinical pharmacokinetics. Just I am giving a very simple example that clinical pharmacokinetics can also be used for the knowledge of the steady state concentration. Okay, so we can understand, we can get a steady state concentration with the application of the clinical pharmacokinetics. So we will know something about the steady state concentration. See, we have got various other areas where clinical pharmacokinetics can be used. I am giving an example of steady state concentration. Now suppose this is a drip, an intravenous drip, and suppose this is a knob, and via this knob we can adjust that at what rate the drug should be moved to the blood circulation of the patient. Okay, and here what we need to know is the amount of drug administered and what is the amount of drug eliminated. See, when initially we have started giving the intravenous drip, so initially the administered drug will be more as compared to drug eliminated. See, before giving the drip, the person's body didn't had any concentration of the drug in the plasma. Okay, and when initially the drug is getting administered, slowly the concentration of the drug will be increasing in the plasma, and that concentration after coming at a particular level, after that only the elimination of the drug will get initiated, and slowly the elimination of the drug will get increased, and there will come a time where the drug administered will be equal to drug eliminated. So this is known as steady state concentration. So steady state concentration means it is that concentration where the amount of drug administered will be equal to the amount of drug eliminated, and the concentration of drug in the plasma will be remained static, or you can say steady. So this is known as steady state concentration. So this for this I have given an example of a intravenous drip. You can also maintain a steady state concentration by giving any drug orally. Like suppose there happens to be a drug and that needs to be taken orally, and the concentration of that drug is 100 mg, and this drug needs to get repeated after every half life. So after every half life of this particular drug, you should give another dose of that particular drug. Now just imagine you have given a first dose of 100 mg and the plasma concentration of the drug will be increasing. Okay, and eventually metabolism of that drug will take place, because of which the plasma concentration of the drug will be reducing, and before reaching the half life means the time required for half of the drug to get metabolized and eliminated. So half life means half of the drug should get metabolized and eliminated. That means 50 mg should be remaining in the plasma concentration. So when you have given 100 mg and that 100 mg has undergone metabolism and eliminated, and now when the plasma concentration of drug is just 50 mg, at that time you should give an another dose of 100 mg. Okay, so when you are giving 100 mg of dose, and previously we had 50 mg, so that happens to be 150 mg. Okay, so eventually when you give 100 mg of the dose orally, now the plasma concentration of drug will become 150 mg, and at 150 mg the plasma concentration of the drug will still increase. So 150 mg of later on the plasma concentration will be reduced because of metabolism and elimination, and the half life will be around 75 mg of the drug will be there. Okay, so at the second dose, the half life of the second dose, the plasma concentration of the drug will be 75 mg. Now this half life has been achieved, and after this half life we need to give an another dose of the drug, that is 100 mg. So 100 mg given and plus 75 mg previously the plasma had, so it will become together 175 mg. So now 175 mg of the drug is present in your plasma, so the plasma concentration will still increase and then reduce because of metabolism and elimination, and now the half life, that is half of 175, will be 87.5 mg. Now at 87.5 mg, when the plasma concentration appears over here, we should give an another dose of 100 mg, so that together will become 187.5 mg. Again the plasma concentration will increase, again it will undergo metabolism and half life will occur, which is half of 187.5, that is 93.75 mg. Again we will give an another dose of 100 mg, and it appears to be 193.7 mg. Plasma concentration increases, half life will be 96.8 mg. Again gave another dose of 100 mg, which together become 196.8 mg. Again the plasma concentration increases, half life occurs, and half life the concentration will be 98.4 mg. Again you give an another dose of 100 mg, that together becomes 198.4 mg. Again the plasma concentration increases, and so on and so forth. Okay, so as you are giving the dose of the drug after every half life, such kind of peaks will be there. So when we take an average of the half life, you will get a graph somewhat like this. Okay, so eventually the curve was increasing, and later on that red line has become straight, a plateau has become, means we got a plateau. So that plateau is known as a steady state. Okay, so at steady state means we should get a straight line for the half life. Okay, so that is known as steady state. So steady state can be achieved by giving a dose repeatedly after every half life. Now few questions will be occurring in your mind, like when is the steady state concentration achieved? Now you can see at the first half life the concentration of drug, or you can say the dose of the drug given, was 50 mg. At the second half life, at the second half life the drug was around 75 mg. Third half life 87.5 mg. Fourth half life 93.75 mg. Fifth half life 96.8 mg. Okay, so you can see the difference between fourth and fifth half life. The fourth half life the amount of drug was 93.7 and the fifth was 96.8. So a difference of hardly 2 to 3 mg. Similarly, when you compare the fifth half life with the sixth half life, at the fifth half life the amount of drug was 96.8 mg, and at the sixth it was 98.4 mg. So you can see hardly a difference of 1.5 to 2 mg. So the answer is the steady state concentration can be achieved after 4 to 5 half lives. Okay. So suppose you have got any drug that have got half life of 2 hours, and you want to maintain a steady state concentration of that particular drug. So 2 half lives means after 4 to 5 half lives, like you can say around 10 hours you can get a steady state concentration of that particular drug. Okay, so a steady state concentration can be achieved after every 4 to 5 half lives of the drug. Okay, Another question that will come in your mind is what will be the concentration of the drug at steady state plasma concentration? Okay, SSPC means steady state plasma concentration. What might be the concentration of the drug? Like we are administering a drug which is equal to the drug getting eliminated. So what exactly will be the amount of drug, the concentration of the drug in the plasma at the steady state? The answer for this is it mainly depends upon the dose given per unit time. Okay, it mainly depends upon the dosing rate, how much dose you are giving in how much time. It mainly depends upon that. Okay, now and another thing that you should know about these peaks are, like I have drawn a straight, means these black lines, these curvy lines I have made. So for a steady state, the curvy lines can be like this also, very small, or it may be like this also, just like mountains. So what does it implies? Both yellow line, black line and blue line, all these three lines will imply a steady state concentration. Means the half-life will be moving at the center and eventually a peak will be occurring. A plateau will be occurring. But when you compare to these lines, what does these peaks and troughs indicates? See, peaks means when you are giving any dose, after eventually, immediately after administration of the drug, the plasma concentration will be very much high. So this implies the peak. This trough means when you are taking a second dose of the drug, before taking the second dose, the amount of the drug which was there in the plasma concentration will be very low. So that low concentration is known as trough. Okay, like you have got any drug that have got an half-life of 12 hours. Okay, so half-life of 12 hours means for maintaining a steady state concentration, you need to take that drug 2 times a day. Like you have taken one drug in the morning 6 a.m. and second dose has to be taken at the evening 6 p.m. Now suppose you have taken that drug at morning 6 a.m. and eventually around 7 a.m. the plasma concentration was very much high. And at the evening time, when you have to take the second dose of the drug at the evening at 6 p.m., just before taking that dose of the drug, like around 5 p.m., the plasma concentration of the drug was very low. So this implies peak and trough, and these big curves will occur for the drug that have got very big half-lives. Eventually, for the drug that have got very small half-life, that drugs needs to be taken very frequently. So for them, the curves will be somewhat like this. So this difference is the frequency of the dose. The drug that is been taken very frequently, the curvy lines will be very much small enough. But this line, this big gap is there. This gap is because the drug is taken at a very long interval. But we don't want this thing. Now I can explain this with a very simple example of amiodarone. Amiodarone is an antiarrhythmic drug and it has got a very long half-life. The half-life of amiodarone is around more than 3 weeks as such. So we can assume that for our understanding, just assume that half-life of amiodarone is around 20 days. Okay, so amiodarone have got a half-life of 20 days, and when we want a steady state concentration of amiodarone means we need to wait for around 4 half-life. So 4 half-lives for 20 days half-life of a drug, that means for maintaining a steady state, for completing the 4 half-life of amiodarone, we should wait for around 100 days. Okay, or you can say around 3 months. So for getting a steady state concentration of amiodarone, we need to take a normal therapeutic dose of amiodarone, and the steady state will be achieved after 3 months. But this is not okay. We want the thing very fast. We are impatient people. We don't have patience. We want everything right now. So for this, what should we do? For this, what we are doing, we are giving amiodarone a loading dose. A very high dose of amiodarone will be given initially to initiate the action of the drug, that is amiodarone. So this initial high dose is known as loading dose, and then afterward regularly we are giving small dosage of 1 mg 2 mg like that. So that is known as maintenance dose. So this loading dose and maintenance dose, the calculation of these two doses are also done with the help of clinical pharmacokinetics. So this is about the steady state concentration. I hope you understood regarding this thing what I wanted to deliver to you people. So next we'll study about therapeutic drug monitoring, like what exactly is this. Now suppose that happens to be a person who is suffering from hypertension and his blood pressure is around 160 millimeter of mercury. Now we want that the blood pressure should be reduced to around 120 millimeter of mercury. Okay, so a doctor will prescribe him a drug A, suppose and imagine a drug A around 100 mg to be taken for a week, and the doctor says come next week. Okay, so the person will consume this drug A, that is for 100 mg, for 1 week, and next week the patient will approach again to the doctor. Now the doctor will check the blood pressure, and suppose the blood pressure now is 150 millimeter of mercury. So the blood pressure has not been reduced to our expected level. So in that case, what the doctor will do? The doctor will increase the dose of the drug. Now suppose instead of 150 millimeter of mercury, the blood pressure of that particular person has been reduced to 100 millimeter of mercury. So in this case, what the doctor will do? He will obviously reduce the dose of this drug. Okay, so we can monitor the dosing of the drug depending upon the response of the blood pressure produced. Okay, so this thing is very much simple. If blood pressure is not reducing, just increase the dose of the drug. If the blood pressure has fallen very much significantly, then reduce the dose of the drug. This is simple enough. Now we have got another person, and this person is suffering from epilepsy. So a doctor prescribed him with a drug B to be taken 100 mg for 1 week, and after 1 week the person will come. Now how to monitor the level of epilepsy? We do not have any device to check that how much epilepsy is getting treated. See, the doctor cannot wait that another attack of seizure should occur and then I will increase the dose of the drug, or any adverse effect of the drug should occur and then I will reduce the dose of the drug. The doctor cannot take chance. It is not a kind of hit and trial method. So this thing can be solved by using the plasma concentration of drug. See, previously so many clinical trials are being done for these drugs, and in those clinical trials, from these clinical trials we will get a normal range of the drug, that a normal range of plasma concentration that has to be maintained for the drug. Suppose for this drug B, the normal plasma concentration is to be 5 to 10 microgram per liter. So this much has to be maintained. So what a doctor will do, the doctor will prescribe the drug for 1 week, and after 1 week the doctor will check the plasma concentration of the drug. Suppose in one individual who was taking this drug B of 100 mg for nearly 1 week, for him the plasma concentration is around 6 microgram per liter. That means it is okay. In a second individual who is taking this drug B 100 mg for nearly 1 week, and in that particular person the plasma concentration of the drug is appearing to be just 3 microgram per liter. So in that case, the doctor will increase the dose of the drug. In another individual, the same drug B was been given for 100 mg for a week, and after 1 week, when the plasma concentration of drug in that patient was been checked, it was found to be nearly 20 microgram per liter. So in that case, the doctor will reduce the dose of the drug. So this monitoring of the dosing done by checking the plasma concentration of the drug, this thing is known as, yes, our hero has came, this thing is known as therapeutic drug monitoring. Okay, so in therapeutic drug monitoring, we are monitoring the dose of the drug depending upon the plasma concentration of the drug. See, this therapeutic drug monitoring is different from the monitoring of the therapeutic drug. Okay, means monitoring of the drug therapy is different. In monitoring of the drug therapy means a person will be there with hypertension and we are prescribing him an hypertensive drug. That is different. Okay, monitoring of drug therapy is different. In therapeutic drug monitoring, we are adjusting the dose, and how the dose is getting adjusted depending upon the plasma concentration of the drug. So that is therapeutic drug monitoring. Next, when to use TDM? TDM is therapeutic drug monitoring. When we should use TDM? See, as such, TDM is very good thing. Because of TDM, we can increase the chances of therapeutic effectiveness of the drug, and we can minimize the chances of adverse effect, if any, produced by the drug. So we can use TDM. We should use TDM because it is very good thing. We can minimize to 0.001% the chances of adverse effect, and we can increase 99.999% the chances of therapeutic effectiveness of the drug. But still, we are not using TDM everywhere. The reason behind that is, for measuring the therapeutic drug monitoring, for measuring TDM, we need to prick the person's body, and we should take off the blood, and we should check the plasma concentration of that particular drug. Okay, so every time pricking the blood is not an okay thing. We can check it via various other device. Okay, and moreover, checking the plasma concentration of the drug is very much problematic thing, because the plasma concentration of the drug, for checking that, for analyzing that, we require various instruments such as HPLC and HPTLC, which are very much expensive instruments. For a person like me, no one will allow me to even touch those instruments. And moreover, for operating those instruments, we require some expert person. And when you assume such expensive instruments with expertise person, we will not get these things, these facilities in a remote areas. So that means testing or analyzing the plasma concentration of drug is very much expensive. Now suppose a patient with hypertension comes to a doctor. The doctor prescribes him a drug for to be taken for a week, and says that next week come to me with 50 to 60,000 rupees. I will check the plasma concentration of the drug in your body. So what the patient will do? The patient will change the doctor only. Okay, because hypertension, blood pressure, the blood pressure can be checked by various other means. We need not to expend so much amount of money for checking just a blood pressure. Okay, so for blood pressure, doing TDM is a stupid thing. But there are few areas where you cannot check the responses, like epilepsy. We cannot check the depth of epilepsy. Depression, we cannot check the depth of depression. Psychosis, we cannot check the depth of psychosis. Cancer, we cannot check the extent of cancer. So the first area where TDM is used is when the response cannot be measured. Okay, well, whenever response cannot be measured, we can use TDM. But the areas, the problem where responses can be measured, like blood pressure, yes, it can be measured. Blood temperature, body temperature, it can be measured. Our blood glucose level, it can be measured. So for these problem, we are not using TDM, but the responses which cannot be measured, for that we can use, or we have to use TDM. Now suppose there is a drug which have got a very wide therapeutic index. Okay, so therapeutic index is between 5 microgram per liter to 1000 microgram per liter. That means when the plasma concentration of drug is above 5 microgram per liter, the drug is effective, and the concentration, or you can say the plasma concentration of the drug, is less than 1000 microgram liter, it is not producing any toxic effect. So the therapeutic index, the therapeutic window is very much wide over here. Okay, now suppose you are giving any drug around 100 mg. So 100 mg, obviously it will produce plasma concentration of around 6 microgram or 8 microgram, or anyways more than 5 microgram. If you are thinking that no, it may not produce the plasma concentration more than 5 microgram, then increase the dose to 100, or increase the dose by 100. So now if we give 200 microgram, now at least you can expect that okay, the plasma concentration may be 10 microgram, or at least more than 5 microgram. So any drug that have got so much wide therapeutic index, we need not to use the TDM, the therapeutic drug monitoring. We just increase the dose of the drug unless and until a desired response is been produced. Okay, so the drug that have got a wide therapeutic index, no need of doing TDM. But there are few drugs that have got very narrow therapeutic index, like over here. Any drug which is producing a plasma concentration of more than 5 microgram will be producing some kind of response. But the limit is very much narrow. the plasma concentration should be less than 10 microgram, because if the plasma concentration goes more than 10 microgram, it is likely to produce some kind of toxic effect. Okay, so here if you are giving same 100 microgram, 100 mg of the drug, the concentration of drug may be above 5 microgram per liter, or it may be less than 5 microgram per liter. If we are trying to increase the dose to 200 microgram, the plasma concentration of the drug, it may be in more than 5 microgram per liter, because of which some therapeutic action may be produced. But there are chances that plasma concentration may go more than 10 microgram per liter, and which is likely to produce a toxic action. So we cannot judge that how much amount of dose can be should be given to maintain the concentration of the drug in a therapeutic index, in a normal therapeutic index. So here you can make the utilization of TDM. Okay, so the second area where we can use TDM is for the drugs that have got very narrow therapeutic index. Now you take another thing. We are giving any drug of around dose of 150 mg to one individual, and that individual is showing a plasma concentration of drug of about 7 microgram per liter. Now for 10 people you give same 150 mg of the drug, and in all those 10 people the plasma concentration of drug appears to be 7 microgram per liter. Now same dose 150 mg you give to nearly 100 people, and all those 100 people are showing the plasma concentration of 7 microgram per liter. So this implies that this particular drug have got very much consistent pattern of pharmacokinetics. To any individual you give 150 mg of that particular drug is showing a plasma concentration of 7 microgram per liter. So when any drug is showing consistent pharmacokinetic parameters, so we need not to use TDM over here. No need of applying TDM in this case. But if a drug it is given to one individual, about 150 mg of dose is given of any kind of drug to one individual, suppose that person is showing plasma concentration of 4 microgram per liter. A second individual, when same dose 150 mg of same drug is given, he is showing a plasma concentration of 20 microgram per liter. And another individual, same 150 mg of a drug is given, and he shows a plasma concentration of about 50 microgram per liter. So this implies that the pharmacokinetic parameter is inconsistent over here. So the third area where we can use TDM is when there is inconsistency in the pharmacokinetic pattern. Okay, so in these three areas we can use the therapeutic drug monitoring. Now when we make a graph taking dose versus plasma concentration, it may be linear, it may not be linear. So TDM does not depends upon this. Okay, so if the dose versus plasma concentration curve is linear, we can apply TDM. If the dose versus plasma concentration is non-linear, then also we can apply TDM. So TDM does not depends upon the dose and plasma concentration of the drug relationship, but the TDM mainly rely on the response versus plasma concentration of the drug. It is very much prerequisite of a TDM that when you are increasing the plasma concentration of the drug, along with that the response should also be increasing. Okay, so we require, so any drug which is following this thing, we can apply TDM on those drugs. Okay, so response should always be directly proportional to the plasma concentration of the drug. This is a prerequisite of TDM. Now, there are few drugs which are pro-drug as such, and when we consume them, it undergo metabolism and get converted into active drug. There are few drugs which are already active, and after getting metabolism, it will get converted into another active drug. So what do you think? Can we apply TDM in such kind of drug? The answer is a big no. Because what we should calculate, should we calculate the dose of prodrug? But when we are calculating the dose of prodrug, we can calculate the plasma concentration of prodrug. But how much amount of prodrug can be converted into active drug, we don't know. If we are checking the plasma concentration of active drug, so we don't know how much amount of prodrug we should consume, because we actually do not know that how much amount of prodrug will get converted into active drug. So we cannot do calculation of this thing. So we does not apply therapeutic drug monitoring in such kind of drugs. Next, patient compliance we can get. Like suppose there happens to be a patient who is suffering from psychosis, and the doctor had prescribed him with some antipsychotic drug and said that you should take this drug continuously. That psychotic patient, he will not consume those drugs, but to the doctor he will say, okay, I took that drug, and the doctor will be thinking that okay, this person is taking the drug but still he is not getting recovered. So there is a patient compliance, means the doctor will check the plasma concentration of the drug of that particular patient, and he will get to know that the person is saying the truth or whether he is lying. Okay, so such kind of patients compliance are also available with TDM. So lastly, we'll check out few examples of drugs where TDM can be applied. You can remember it with a simple mnemonic, DIL tap. Okay, DIL means DIL, heart, tap. Like if you care for someone, there will be a tap in their DIL. Okay, this is a stupid example, but this example is okay for remembering the drugs. D for digoxin, I for immunosuppressant, L for lithium. Lithium is used for a bipolar disease. T is for TCA, that is tricyclic antidepressant. A is for antibiotics, and P for phenytoin. Not only phenytoin but various other anti-epileptic drugs. For them also we can do TDM. So this was a very short introduction regarding this subject. I hope you people understood what I was trying to deliver to you people. Okay, so thank you all and all.